In a gigantic commercial building, a kid is climbing the stairs, exhausted, saying he's about to pass out. He had to climb 28 floors and wonders why no one told him he would have to climb all that. He wouldn't have accepted this delivery if he'd known. He rings the doorbell and announces that the delivery has arrived. A woman with an angry face answers, saying, "Finally, huh?" and asks why he took so long, leaving him a bit confused. She snatches the bag from his hand and says he took too long, so he won't get any extra tip. He points to the elevator, saying he climbed 28 floors. But she's more concerned about the food arriving cold. While he seethes with anger, she says that nowadays you really can't rely on any delivery person. He wants to tell her to get her lazy butt off the couch and get it herself then. However, obviously he doesn't say any of that. As she slams the door in his face, the poor guy apologizes, remembering that he needs to stay calm and take deep breaths because he gets too many negative reviews, he won't be able to deliver anymore. Realizing now, unfortunately, he'll have to go down the 27 floors he climbed. Back on his scooter, he thinks it's his fault for being a broke loser. Something catches his attention, and he looks to the side, he sees a dungeon portal. The same old story, a few years ago, portals appeared that allowed you to enter other realms. These realms were full of creatures, a threat too strong for humanity alone to defeat, until one day the gods selected some humans to give extraordinary abilities to. These selected people would be the ones to venture into the dungeons and be called hunters by the rest of the world. But for him, seeing a portal is bad news since he'll have to take a detour to another street because entering it would be dangerous. Suddenly, he receives a call from his boss, scolding him, wanting to know what happened with the last delivery. The boss tells him to stop causing problems since he has a lot to deal with. He says the order he delayed was for an important person, so he'll go a week without getting any orders. He tries to say something, but the guy is already hung up. He sees in the app's review section that the woman from the 28th floor threw the food in the toilet because she said it was old and cold. He wants to call the boss to explain what's going on, but is being ignored. Now the boy is screwed, he's already late on his rent this week. Staring at the gate, he just wonders why he can't be one of the chosen ones and live a peaceful life as a hunter. Exhausted, he just wants to go home and calm down, until Harp plays on his phone indicating he received a delivery request. That window surprises him since he had never seen it before. He decides to click out of curiosity. The phone emits a flash, and when he opens his eyes, he's in a place that resembles the heavens. He's scared, wondering where he is. Is this a dream? Or has he finally been chosen by a mystical being? Nothing has really happened yet, but he's already crying with emotion, thinking his life as a delivery boy is over. However, he then realizes that his phone still shows a delivery to be made and is even displaying a map. He's confused because the delivery says to pick up a nectar. With nothing better to do, he decides to accept. As soon as he clicks, the golden gate in front of him opens. He swallows hard, wondering where he's going, and he starts riding above the clouds, passing by the castle. Looking at his phone, he's scared. That place is exactly where the map indicates, but it's something surreal. It's really where the gods live. He enters a palace with giant pillars. In front of a huge door, he wonders if this is where he's supposed to pick up the items. Hesitant, he knocks on the door, knowing that if there might be a god there, he could have a chance to become a hunter. Someone opens the door, asking who he is. Seeing the girl with blonde hair and a white cloak, he recognizes her immediately as a goddess. Stumbling over his words, he says he's there to pick up the order. However, she comes right up to him and asks why a human is there in Olympus. She says he invaded, but he points to his phone, saying he's here to pick up a bottle of nectar. She looks thoughtful and says it might be Herma's doing. She sighs, telling him to wait while she fetches something humans shouldn't even touch. She hands him the bottle of nectar and warns that if her brother doesn't receive it on time, he will be very angry. She gets in his face and says he better not take a sip of it, and he says he understands. She points to her eyes and says she's watching him, then slams the door in his face. Once again, he's angry. What kind of nonsense is this? He thought he would escape the life of a delivery boy, but now he has become a delivery boy who will also be scolded by the gods. Staring at the bottle, he says it looks like apple juice and thinks about quitting the delivery. However, he reasons that if it's her brother who will receive it, he must also be a god. And since he's here in Olympus, he might as well ask this other guy to maybe turn him into a mythical being. He puts on his helmet, motivated, saying this is the last delivery he will ever make. And with that, he starts driving through the lava. A notification says he's approaching. After a mountain of magma, there's a small house. He arrives at the door, exhausted because it's hotter than a sauna there, and announces that the delivery has arrived. The door suddenly opens. The poor guy is dripping with sweat because it's scorching inside. In the background, there's the sight of a dwarf hammering on a forge who turns around angrily and asks who entered. Embarrassed, the protagonist says he's not an intruder. He's just here to make a delivery. The dwarf approaches him, eyes gleaming, saying it seems his sister sent this guy. The poor boy can't believe the two are siblings. They look nothing alike. However, at this moment, the dwarf notices he's not Hermes. Preparing his aura, he says the boy arrived there uninvited. The protagonist, embarrassed, says it was his sister who asked him to deliver this thing. The dwarf realizes the nectar bottle is full and tells the boy it's amazing he brought it without taking a sip. The boy says he's not that kind of thief. Of course, he wouldn't drink someone else's stuff and hands it over, saying the dwarf can take it. The dwarf laughs, saying the boy is very honest. A sip of that nectar would have turned him into a god, yet he felt no temptation. At this moment, the protagonist is confused upon hearing this, already thinking that if he had taken a sip, he would be a god now. He eagerly moves to open the bottle, saying his life as a delivery boy is over. However, something interrupts. The dwarf grabs it, takes off the cap. The protagonist tries to say something, but it's too late. The guy has already taken a big gulp. He throws the bottle on the ground, saying it's even better when you drink it all at once. The boy is devastated, while the dwarf says he hadn't tasted such fresh nectar in a long time. Introducing himself as Hephaestus, he asks who the protagonist is. He replies that his name is Heijun Lee. Hephaestus then thanks him, saying he is very honest. Before he can say anything, the dwarf is already leaving, saying that now that he's refreshed, he'll get back to work. However, Heijun puts his hand on his shoulder and asks him to wait. The dwarf asks what it is, and he says he hasn't been paid yet. Hephaestus turns around and asks if he's talking about the delivery fee. If that's the case, he should have already received it and walks away laughing like a fool. At that moment, Heijun checks the app on his phone, which emits a flash of light that ends up blinding him. In his system interface, it shows 1,000 points. He is in bed, saying he's sure it wasn't a dream. As soon as he looked at the app, he was surrounded by light and was back on Earth. However, now this little screen is in front of him. He's angry, saying he has no idea how to use these points. He was face to face with a god, so all he wanted was to become the strongest S-rank hunter in the world. The system gives a notification and says that points can be exchanged for various items in the shop. He decides to accept because he needs to find some use for these points. The shop has everything from a golden apple worth 1,000 points to a motorcycle worth 100,000. He gets angry, saying nothing is useful and everything is too expensive. He starts scrolling through the shop looking for something he can use in a hunter's gate. However, he begins to realize it's useless. He won't be able to live this adventurous life until something catches his attention. At the bottom, there are 10,000 won, or about $10 for 1 point. If this is true, just with this delivery, he earned 10,000. Hesitant, he decides to touch it. As soon as he presses, a 10,000 won bill appears in front of him and falls into his lap. He picks it up, and it feels very real. The system updates, and now he has 999 points. The poor guy is in disbelief, looking at the bill, looking at the system. He presses again and again until it starts raining bills in the room. Now the sneaky grin on his face has changed. He throws the money up in the air, saying that's what he likes. In the next scene, he's even eating ramen with sewer worms, completely happy and obviously radiant. He went to a deposit machine and tested the money, which worked perfectly. He's crying with emotion that he earned around $10,000 from one delivery. The woman in the shop asks if it's really that bad, and he says it's actually too good. He's like a madman laughing alone in the corner of the restaurant. He's wondering what to do with the money when the TV talks about a guy's recruitment. He watches the news about the guild's preparation for the Tartarus Gate, the most dangerous one of all. The guy hired is someone who placed in the top 5 of the hunter exam and has a contract with the mythical being Hephaestus. He recalls that Hephaestus is the name of the chubby dwarf, who now is the best customer he has ever had. He leaves the restaurant with a full belly, and then his phone rings. He figured something like this might happen, so he brought his scooter. The phone glows, notifying him of a new delivery, and as always, he gets teleported. Once again in Olympus, he opens his eyes. But this time, he's in a gigantic botanical garden. He's wondering where to pick up the delivery when someone calls his name, Heijun Lee. A girl appears, introducing herself as the goddess Demeter. Heijun greets her, and she says she heard about him from her nephew. He asks who her nephew is, and she says it's Hephaestus. The poor guy thinks someone is messing with his family because no one looks alike. Radiant, she says that it seems he didn't drink any of the nectar and asks if she can trust him to deliver something. Of course, he says yes, he'll deliver anything. After all, it's easy money. He imagines that this time he'll receive something insane. Demeter activates an energy in her hand and creates a lunchbox. He's a bit confused, but she tells him to deliver this lunchbox to her daughter, explaining that unfortunately, the gods cannot leave their palaces without a good reason. Heijun didn't expect something so simple, but at least it will be easy. He's sure he'll deliver it, but suddenly she shivers and the entire garden around them rots in an instant. He looks around wondering what's happening, but she's already leaving, thanking him. He hopes there won't be any problems with the delivery or that it isn't a godly bomb. So he stores it on his scooter, imagining that the goddess wouldn't send something like that to her daughter. He decides to check the destination, but something catches his attention and a flash of light brings him back to Earth, leaving him confused. The app shows that the delivery is indeed in Korea. He remembers that the goddess said they can't leave their palaces without a good reason and figures it must be something like that. Apparently, he will meet her daughter when he gets there. He's never been so excited about a delivery before, already curious to know how many points he'll receive. Upon arriving at the destination, he takes off his helmet, saying it must be a joke. The delivery says he has to enter the most dangerous dungeon in the world, the Tartarus dungeon known as the Hunter's Graveyard. But he says it can't be that, the daughter must be just in front of the gate. Yet the phone says the destination has been updated, and the map clearly shows the inside of Tartarus. He shouts that there's no way he's entering that place and decides to cancel the order. However, below the 1-hour limit, it says that if he cancels, he will receive a divine punishment. A timer appears saying he has 42 minutes or he will turn into a pig with a human conscience. Desolate, he wonders what kind of punishment that is. He should have at least checked the information, but none of it makes sense. First of all, he can't get past those guards at the gate. The psycho starts thinking about all the foods made with pork. That's when the assistant window appears again, saying that if he needs any assistance, he can check the shop. He knows he has few points, so it wouldn't be useful. He starts planning to hire hunters to go in there. But in the shop for 800 points, there's a replica of the Kaini, a helmet of haze that hides the user's presence for 30 minutes. He says that this limited time offer stuff is nonsense and clearly just a way to drain all the points he has. But since he'll turn into a pig if he doesn't accept, he decides to buy the helmet, vowing never to take another job again. The helmet appears out of nowhere, and as he tries to grab it, it rolls away. What fool! Now equipped, he has 38 minutes to make the delivery. He easily rides past the guards who don't notice his presence, only sneezing due to the cold wind. He heads towards the gate, terrified since it's one of the most horrifying places in the world. But with no other option, he goes on. Hajin Lee, a 20-year-old delivery boy with no hunter's license, no mythical contract, no supernatural powers or physical abilities, defies all odds. He becomes the first person to reach the deepest part of Tartarus. Looking around, he says there's no one there, but at least he got there quickly and won't be turned into a pig. He starts shouting, saying the delivery has arrived. From the darkness, a 3-headed wolf stares at him. The poor guy is terrified, wondering what it is. The beast comes drooling, ready to bite him. He, with no powers, thinks it would have been better to turn into a pig. The creature approaches face to face. He knows this is his end. He spent all he had on this damn helmet and now served himself on a platter to this monster. But then he remembers he had 2 uses of the helmet. The monster leaps to bite when he activates the helmet again. But now he's already under its teeth. It's too late. Until someone tells the beast not to eat anything dirty, the monster freezes for a moment. Heijin opens his eyes hesitantly, seeing he's not dead. He looks back and sees a little girl. He wonders why a child is in the deepest part of Tartarus. She approaches gracefully, petting the beast, saying this dog doesn't bite. The poor guy immediately sees she looks just like her mother, Demeter. He asks for permission and says he has a delivery. When someone behind asks where Persephone went, a pale man appears, saying it seems she went to play with Cerberus. The man then sees the protagonist and asks how a mortal had the courage to enter Hades' underworld. Embarrassed, the protagonist tries to explain but is already scared, having heard it's the king of the underworld. Hades says he's the first human to reach there in a long time since Orpheus. An aura surrounds Heijin, squeezing his neck. The poor guy can't breathe or speak. Hades says Orpheus went there to rescue his wife who had died, but the boy had come to steal his helmet. As soon as he grabs his hand, he notices it's a fake version. Persephone says they should listen to what the boy has to say first. With that, Hades releases Heijin, who falls, coughing. He asks why he entered this domain. Struggling to speak, he explains he came to make a delivery. Hades wants to know if it's a delivery for him, the god of the underworld. The protagonist says that's not the case, and he brought something that his wife sent for their daughter. They look at each other confused. Hades wants to know why he's making the delivery and not Hermes. Trembling, Heijin says he doesn't know why, but that's what he was told to bring. Persephone recognizes the lunchbox sent. Hades asks if Heijin didn't say it was his wife who asked him to bring it. The poor guy says yes, she asked him to bring it to her daughter. Persephone explains that it was made by her mother-in-law. The girl is all radiant, saying it arrived warm. But hearing this, Heijin wonders if the two are a couple. He points to Hades, saying he's disgusting and too old for. Whoops, he covers his own mouth, realizing he spoke without thinking. But Hades heard him clearly and tells him to repeat those words to the king of the underworld. The protagonist starts babbling, trying to apologize but trembling. Hades just stares at him and then starts laughing like a fool. The protagonist is confused and Hades says he never imagined a human would have the courage to insult him, the god of the underworld. He asks Heijin's name, who responds while shaking. Hades warns that since this is the first time, he will forgive the insolence. However, if he does something again, he only needs to point a hand, and Heijin is surrounded by energy, understanding very well what will happen. With that, Hades says that the payment has been delivered and he can thank his mother-in-law for it. Immediately, the window blinks, and this time he receives 10,000 points plus an extra 5,000 from the god of the underworld. Hades even returns the helmet, saying he can keep the trinket. Heijin trembles and thanks him with a big smile. The scene changes to a man exhausted, facing a dragon. He prepares for combat. He is the captain of Team 1 and a combat-type hunter, Doyen Ha. He delivers a series of blows to the dragon, but it retaliates with a claw to his chest. However, someone else attacks from behind with an aura blade and the dragon notices. But the attack lands and the dragon rides in agony towards the sky and then falls defeated. The swordsman approaches Doyen and congratulates him, saying they finally conquered the first floor of Tartarus. This man is the guild master Yangwon and also ranks 3rd in the world. His name is Songjin Park. Everyone there is celebrating. He says it's a great day because their guild has now reached the deepest part of Tartarus. However, everyone is really exhausted. Seongjin thanks Doyeon, saying it's all thanks to him. Doyeon, emotional, says he's not that good. Everyone is hugging, saying they will stay together forever. Seongjin tells Erin to go easy on the dragon. She is ranked 17th in the world and says she understands. The boss says he knows she wants to collect many mana stones, but it's okay, no need to rush. However, she feels something. She dismounts from the dragon, warning that something is coming at high speed. The team stares into the void, knowing they are exhausted and it will be very difficult to defend themselves. Seongjin tells everyone to prepare, and Erin says it's almost here. The leader warns that if things get tough, everyone should flee and will try to hold the monsters back. But the guys are emotional, saying they will fight with him to the end of the world. He smiles, but Erin warns it's arriving now. In the distance, there's the sound of an engine, and obviously, the shadow of a motorcycle with a helmet. Seongjin is shocked, wondering what the heck that is. Calmly, Haejin asks for permission to pass. Seeing the dragon, he says they are incredible, and he's glad they are there because the helmet's effect was about to end. He looks back and gives a thumbs up, telling them to be careful because from here on there are creatures with dark magic, and he speeds off on his scooter. No one in the guild has managed to say a word, so confused are they. The next scene talks about the number 150 million. If it were a measure in years, you would go back to the dinosaur era, a number close to the entire population of Korea. Normally, you get about $3 per delivery. He would need to make 50,000 deliveries to reach that total. But this is the exact amount he would receive if he exchanged his points now. The guy is grinning widely, right? He stared at that number all day. Of course, he was scared to death of turning into a pig. There was also a moment when he was almost eaten by a dog. Besides, he was almost strangled by the god of the underworld. Thinking about it, he suffered a lot to earn this money. But now he laughs. In the end, none of that matters because he earned a ton of money. And the weakest capitalist always wants more, obviously. He says from this moment on, but then his stomach growls and he realizes it's good to go eat something. Maybe a beer with fried chicken. Meanwhile, Seongjin was attending a conference. He's exhausted and goes out to talk to the members. Right after that, he has to talk to the president of the Hunter Association. The guy doesn't get a second of rest. Doyeon asks if he mentioned the delivery boy at the conference. He replies that he didn't. He prefers to keep it hidden for now since no one has any idea where that guy came from. They should have chased the guy to ask some questions, but everyone was exhausted and didn't know what to say. However, obviously, everyone in the guild is curious. The blonde says he was wearing a strange helmet and riding a scooter. Maybe it won't be too hard to find him. But Seongjin tells them not to worry too much since their goal is to conquer the dungeons, not to find out who the mysterious guy is. So he informs the two there that they need to make new weapons, so they'll have to go to the mining dungeon. Doyeon tries to complain but has no choice and asks what type of metal he wants. Seongjin thinks for a moment and says it's something called celestial metal. Meanwhile, our protagonist is eating his fried chicken. He was excited to eat until his phone rang. He jumped up, not wanting to miss any orders from the gods. He was hungry, but in a flash of light, he found himself surrounded by mountains, and right in front of him was Hephaestus' house once again. That's when he realizes he forgot his scooter and helmet. While he's wondering about this, someone is behind him. Suddenly, someone calls out to the boy, and he turns to see Hephaestus with tears in his eyes. Haejin asks why he's not inside the house. Crying, Hephaestus says he was expelled. Haejin is confused and asks what he's talking about. He explains that he was drinking and eating with his brother Dionysus when someone appeared, calling him dear and asking why he was drinking again. With that, the two were expelled and she said they shouldn't even think about coming back. Dionysus left immediately, but the little dwarf is abandoned there. Haejin says he understands but asks what he wants him to deliver. Desolate, Hephaestus says anything to drink or eat. Since he was expelled, he hasn't eaten anything. He implored, but even his sister didn't have nectar, and now only Haejin can save him. Haejin kind of understands but has no idea what a god eats or drinks. Lying on the ground, Hephaestus says if he could have some kind of meat with alcohol, it would be perfect. Haejin goes on his phone and tells him to wait a second. A flash of light happens while the dwarf is lying on the ground. He sniffs something until Haejin appears with the beer and chicken he had bought, saying he's happy to share. Hephaestus says he has no idea what that is, and our boy explains that it's a common combo in Korea. The sun is shining between the mountains and the dwarf is incredibly happy, saying he's never had such a refreshing drink in his life. He also thought the chicken piece was too small, but when he bites into it, it has the best taste he's ever had in his life. Haejin wonders if this guy is really a mythical being. The dwarf says he will give him a great reward and tells him to check his phone. At that moment, the phone rings, and when he looks, he's gained another 15,000 points from Hephaestus. The sneaky guy can't believe he earned $150,000 just for delivering some chicken. The dwarf even says that if he needs anything, just call. To him, this dwarf is the most lovable guy in the world, and he wants to hug him. He draws over affectionately when someone approaches. A voice calls out, "Dear," and they both turn. Haejin is startled. She asks why he's drinking again. "Man, what is this?" This is the goddess of plenty and density, everyone. The protagonist is moved to tears by her beauty, saying he's never seen anything so beautiful. He doesn't understand how she's married to that crying dwarf and why he suddenly falls to his knees. Hephaestus starts explaining that he's eating there only because he was expelled from home. She makes an angry face, saying it looks like he's completely right. The dwarf is shocked, and Heijin says he better apologize. She then calls Heijin by name and introduces herself as Aphrodite. She is truly the goddess of love, carrying such an immense amount of happiness. She apologizes, and Heijin says it's no problem at all. He's only there because he was hired. Hearing this, the dwarf asks if he can deliver something. He's unsure what to say, and Aphrodite says he seems to be an honest boy. Not motivated, he says they can count on him since he is the delivery boy of the gods. The dwarf liked this information a lot, but in reality, Heijin wants to deliver something for Aphrodite, right? The dwarf then tells him to fetch some materials he needs for the forge. The location is right in his city, and what he's looking for is also the celestial metal. The next moment, he's already on his scooter, wondering if this is the right place. Once again in front of a gate, but this time for the COURIER mines. Facing it, his heart races. He's in disbelief that he's entering another dungeon again. As soon as he saw the location, he went to check and found out it was the mines. He was thoughtful and told Hephaestus that he wouldn't be able to do it, explaining that the last time he entered a dungeon, he almost died. The dwarf asked why, and he said it was because he's not a hunter and can't fight. He only managed because he had a helmet that hid his presence, but now it's broken. Hephaestus said that if it's a broken helmet, just give it to him and he'll fix it. All excited, he got up and said that he's the god of blacksmiths and can fix any mythical treasure. Heijin got excited, and now he's back in the dungeon with a helmet. It's a repaired replica with a duration of 2 minutes and 2 uses. Once again, we go inside the gate, but upon entering there's a fair going on and he's confused. He knew this dungeon was popular, but this is ridiculous. He imagined the problem would be the monsters, but now he realized he would have to go deep into this place to find anything. Meanwhile, Doyen is there calmly eating. After driving for 30 minutes, he finally found an empty place. The only problem is that the terrain is terrible and his scooter is shaking all over. At least he's starting to see some minerals on the wall. But what he needs to find is the celestial metal, a piece of ore that shines in a red color. He keeps going, wondering how far he'll have to go. When he turns a corner, a giant skeleton passes by him. He gets scared but keeps accelerating, since he's still invisible. However, he crashes his scooter's body. A skeleton notices something but is confused because it can't see anything. The only bad thing is that his scooter is now wrecked. He stops for a second and smiles, thinking he has money to buy infinite ones. With that, he continues going deep into the cave, until, on top of a pile of rocks, he sees the celestial ore. He approaches, takes off his helmet, and smiles, saying he finally found it. The problem is how he's going to carry it out of there. He pulls from one side and kicks from the other, but gives up. What is he going to do now? But the system saves him and tells him to check the shop. Maybe there's something useful. As soon as he opens it, he sees a recommended item for 4,700 points. It's an explorer's pickaxe that can perfectly mine, but only once. But that damn thing, for the number of points, is costing 47 million. He remembers that at the entrance, you can borrow a pickaxe for 10,000. He leaves, saying he's not spending money here in a way. The problem is that looking at his scooter, it's clearly not in the best condition. Knowing that maybe when you make it back, the best thing to do is to take the risk. He already spent the 4,700 and threw it in his hand. Then he just needs to charge Hephaestus for it, and he strikes the ore with the pickaxe. Hitting the ore right on top, it magically detaches from the rock, and the pickaxe disintegrates. The ore rolls down the mountain, and he runs after it like a fool. He lifts the thing off the ground, but it's incredibly heavy. After struggling, he manages to throw it on his scooter, thinking it would be much easier if he could go straight to Olympus. But that's when a stone ogre appears behind him. He's without the helmet and gets scared. The creature roars, shaking the entire cave. In another part of the cave, Doyen was fighting some skeletons. Hearing the roar, he wondered what it was. He felt something approaching from the darkness and prepared to fight whatever it was. It was Heijin, accelerating and telling him to get out of the way. Doyen recognized him as the same guy from Tartarus, but the protagonist just passed by, telling him to run if he valued his life. He couldn't even say anything and the guy was already gone. At that moment, he heard something behind him. Turning around, the ogre was heading in his direction. He ran desperately, saying he wanted a ride. The scene shifts to Heijin screaming that he almost died again. Hephaestus says he's very good at delivering quickly, but our boy is cursing, saying he should have warned him it was so dangerous. The dwarf looks confused, saying there's nothing in that place that puts life at risk. Our protagonist tries to explain that the rock was also gigantic. The dwarf seems confused and he says he'll fetch it. With that, he brings the red block. He tosses the massive rock on the ground and asks Hephaestus to take a look at this gigantic thing he requested. The dwarf is shocked and asks what kind of abomination that is. The two stare at each other. Heijin tells him to stop pretending because that is the celestial metal he was asking for. Hephaestus tries to explain that's not what he meant and lifts the stone, saying he's never heard of such a large and pure celestial metal. Heijin is confused by what he said. The dwarf tells him to wait and shows him something. He comes back with a small stone, saying that was the largest piece he had ever seen before this one. He tells the protagonist that he's more incredible than he thought and really deserves much more than what he's being paid. He tells Heijin to take a look. Heijin is shocked while the dwarf is all excited about his rock. He was supposed to be paid 20,000 points for the delivery, but he received an extra 30,000 points for the size of the stone. He's dizzy, having received $500,000. The dwarf explains that he had to pay more because it would be ridiculous to take just a piece and tell him to take the rest back. Heijin falls to the ground and thanks him from the bottom of his heart. The dwarf tells him to get up, but the boy says he can't. His legs want to express their gratitude. The news reports about the earthquake that happened in the Suri mines. Seongjin asks Doyen if he's really okay. He says yes, but warns that the mines will be closed for a while. Seongjin asks what happened, and he says there was a giant golem there. And that guy who was at the Tartarus gate appeared again. The strangest thing is that the golems seem to be chasing him. Hearing this, Seongjin starts thinking about recruiting the protagonist. Doyen says that if he wants, he can find him. He remembers the guy's bike and license plate, and also got the place's recordings. The leader thanks him, saying bringing someone like that to the guild would be very good. He's happy the guy wasn't hurt, and says that from now on, he'll handle these things. Radiant, Doyen thanks him and says he'll follow him to the end of the world, until Seongjin asks if he got any celestial metal. Then both go silent. Meanwhile, Heijin sees 75,000 points on the screen and grins like a fool. Now with $500,000, he can finally start thinking about a new house. The money he's earning is a lot even for a very good hunter. The only problem is that he knows he's surviving on luck. He starts wondering if maybe there's something useful in the shop. He opens the store looking for something. The problem as always is that everything is extremely useless and expensive. The cheapest weapon costs $1 million. Not to mention it's all replicas, so it probably won't last long. Maybe he should give up trying to defeat monsters. Until something catches his attention, a level 1 racing suit. It significantly enhances the user's physical abilities according to the suit's level, but it costs 50,000 points. He's angry that the system doesn't recommend these good things to him. The only problem is that he doesn't know how effective it is, and 50,000 points is quite expensive. He thinks about it and decides to buy it as an investment in his work. That way he'll be able to make more deliveries. He buys it, there's a flash of light, and the suit appears in front of him. Now there's no turning back. He's left with 25,000 points, but the boy is equipped. Wearing it, he finds it strange that although it's a bit uncomfortable, he feels like he's not wearing anything. Moreover, it doesn't seem to heat up. He decides to test it. Meanwhile, Doyen is desolate in the city. He was looking for the protagonist, but even with the license plate, he couldn't find his address. Since the guy didn't do anything illegal, there's nothing about him with the police. He's shouting alone, wondering how he'll find this bastard. At that moment, the protagonist stops and tells him the light is green. Doyen apologizes and steps aside, saying it seems everyone likes to use that same bike, but then something catches his attention. The scratches on the side are identical to the guy's, and it's the same damn license plate. He shouts for Heijin to stop, but he's already accelerated. He tries to run after him, but can't. Seeing a taxi behind him, he gets in and asks to follow that bike. But the driver kicks him out, asking if he thinks this is a movie. With that, the guy leaves, abandoning him. However, he doesn't give up, saying he'll keep following in that direction until the guy on the bike stops. After running quite a bit, he falls to the ground, exhausted. A woman even asks if he's okay, and he says he is. She says she recognizes him from one of the biggest guilds, and he says she must be confused. Someone from the guild would never be lying on the ground like this. He has no idea where that darn delivery guy went. Then a scream catches everyone's attention. He feels a chill and decides to slowly approach. He looks around but doesn't see the bike anywhere. However, his instincts tell him that guy is behind this. The elderly people tell him to be careful because the echo from the peak could cause an avalanche. He says not to worry because he belongs to a big guild, and starts running again. Once more, he's following the exhausted protagonist, wondering where he is, until he looks to the side and sees a rock with a hole in the middle. Seeing that, he says it's impossible for someone to have done this. Other rank B hunters could break this rock, but creating a perfect crater like this doesn't make sense. He's sure it's some kind of magic or divine power. If it's the guy on the bike, he has to bring him to the guild no matter what. Back at home, the sneaky Heijin is exhausted, unbelieving that he made that hole in the rock. Not to mention, for a few minutes he could run faster than his bike. Now he's happy and feels confident to enter any dungeon. His phone rings once more, but instead of a harp sound, it's the sound of a Chinese instrument. He sees that the location is in Buxiang. Realizing he's not going to Olympus and it's probably a dungeon, he searches on his phone about dungeons in Buxiang. And obviously, as he imagined, there's one called Mount Huago. It's a delivery without a time limit, so he's going to wait for his suit to recharge before doing it. What he didn't realize is that he was being followed. The blonde from the guild was keeping an eye on him. Seongjin already knew everything Daeun told him. He said that if they spread hunters throughout that region, they would definitely find him. Seongjin said it wasn't possible because they didn't have a picture of the guy, but Daeun told him to relax. He showed him a perfect sketch he made of the wanted guy on the bike. The leader asked if it was true that the guy seemed stronger than he appeared. Daeum explained about the pierced rock he saw. It's not something a normal hunter can do. Now they're motivated to recruit the protagonist before the Black Dragon Guild can find him. Although the young one is currently at the top of the Korean guilds, the second largest guild, Black Dragon, has been growing a lot in recent years. However, they are the type of guild that commits any illegal activity to increase their influence. The leader says they can't lose someone so good to a guild like that, especially since they've been getting more and more suspicious lately. Daeun says he can trust him to recruit this guy. The next day, when Haejin arrives at the mountain, there are a lot of people at the entrance, but he saw online that this place wasn't popular. As he approaches, a guy tells him to stay there. Startled, he realizes the guy is actually talking to a little boy right behind him. He hears people talking about something related to the Black Dragon Guild. Our protagonist knows that's one of the guilds that likes to monopolize some gates. However, he goes in since it's none of his business. As soon as he enters the dungeon, he receives a message that he's near the delivery spot. He walks a bit more and the phone says he's right next to it, leaving the poor guy confused. Then he looks to the side and understands they want him to climb to the top of the mountain. Remembering the stone golem, he gets scared. But now he has his suits, so he's confident he can handle any creature. He takes off his helmet and is prepared. But someone calls for the delivery man. A face on the ground calls out to him. Haejin is startled. It's the head of a monkey talking to him. The monkey tells him not to be so scared. Hasn't he ever talked to a monkey before? He's a bit unsure of what to say and asks if the monkey ordered the delivery. The monkey says a kid with a winged hat told him that if he wished hard enough, someone would appear to complete the request. Our protagonist wonders if that child with the winged hat is behind all of this. The monkey then says there's something he wants Haejin to fetch, and the protagonist says to just ask. The monkey introduces himself as the beautiful monkey king or the victorious Buddha. However, people want to call him, some like to say he's the great Sun Wukong. Haejin immediately thinks of Goku and approaches, asking why the monkey is stuck down there. Sun Wukong says he was punished just because he stole some peaches from the Jade Emperor's tree. All he wanted was a bite, but as soon as he touched it, he was imprisoned under the mountain. Haejin says he understands and asks what he wants him to fetch. Wukong says it's nothing too much, just follow the direction behind him and he'll find a pile of trash. There's a hidden box he wants Haejin to bring back. Haejin thinks about this and sees it 6 miles away. Since it's not far, he says he'll be back soon and sets off. However, the little monkey smiles slyly. In the middle of the forest, some adventurers wonder if that is the boss of Mount Huago. Sitting on the ground is a gigantic golem. A girl approaches and tells them not to be afraid. Guys, this is the master of the Black Dragon Guild, and she's very dangerous, carrying a presence that might rival Aphrodite's. Her name is Jua Han. She knows the Yangwon Guild managed to advance the first floor of Tartarus. However, if they can defeat this 8-trigram boss, they might be able to claim the top guild spot. She orders everyone to attack, and the blonde behind her gives the order for the tanks to march forward. However, the guys are hesitating, saying that thing isn't moving, but something feels off. As soon as one steps, a crater opens and the creature begins to rise. The monster is large enough to cast a shadow over the entire team. A roar from the monster makes everyone in the guild tremble, saying they can't fight that thing. But the blonde warns that anyone who deserts the mission will be killed by the guild. The adventurers say it's impossible to defeat such a creature with these lousy weapons. But at that moment, a redhead shouts for everyone to get into combat stance. If they don't focus, they'll be crushed now. The group hesitates but agrees and approaches. The blonde asks the redhead if she thinks the plan will work. She doesn't seem too concerned, saying she doesn't know either. In the forest, Haejin was riding his scooter until an earthquake started. Even some monsters were running from the same direction. Seeing the smoke in the distance, he knew it wasn't good. But since his suit was still on cooldown, he felt confident and decided to check it out. The adventurers were getting battered. One stomp from the golem and they were gone. The rear team tried to give support, but those arrows did nothing to the monster. The redhead, realizing nothing was working, saw a mage beside the leader telling her to do something since he was there to register, not to fight. But Jua says if everyone survives, it will affect her guild's reputation. The guy is confused but gets punched in the face, knocking him out. She says they're only there to help her conquer the place. Since no one could hear anything due to the battle, they kept advancing. The redhead used a jumping ability to launch himself at the golem and landed a direct hit on its head. He shouted to everyone that he created an opening and for them to attack. With that, everyone started surrounding the monster. After much effort, it fell to the ground. The team celebrated, saying that finally the attacks were working. They all cheered, saying they would get out alive. However, the golem suddenly reawakened. Some gears heated up and it started to rise again. Johan seemed excited that the boss was entering phase 2. It now looked bigger and stronger. From the back, Haejin observed everything, wondering where's the like button on this video, my friends? If this video does well, I will bring part 2, so activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out. Do you remember that the last chapter ended when Haejin was inside the dungeon where the monkey had asked him to retrieve a bunch of junk? As soon as he arrived, he liked the video. However, outside, Do Yeonham mentioned that he was in Suwon City yesterday, and today he's heading to Bukshin. The poor guy is exhausted from searching for Haejin so much. At this rate, he'll traverse the entire province. When he reaches the entrance of Seonju Mountain, there's no one there, which confuses him. A chubby guy with glasses appears, calling for him. Do-yeon asks where this chubby guy came from, who tells him to watch his mouth and to say who he is. Do-yeon responds with his name and asks what the guy will do. Already sure that this guy isn't from the association, he probably thinks he's from the Black Dragons. He brushes past the guy, telling him to move aside. The chubby guy keeps insisting for him not to enter, but knowing he can't do anything, Do-yeon just goes in. But this makes it obvious to Do-yeon that if they're putting people there to block others, they're definitely there because of a boss. He starts running, saying he'll have to warn people because they've given up on this place. The true challenge of the 8 trigrams starts for real when the monster enters the second phase. It was at this moment that Haejin was arriving there. Seeing the giant monster with a laser in its belly, he realized that was the junk the monkey had mentioned. Even with the suit, he wasn't confident he'd defeat it. Trembling, he wondered what he wanted to do now. However, he noticed a dense redhead with some guys nearby. He immediately recognized them as members of the Black Dragon Guild. The guys trying to quit were being dragged back into the fight while begging to leave that place. But strangely, the blonde guy jumped with the mage onto the monster's chest. This left Haejin confused, wondering what the guy's plan was. The Black Dragon guy started throwing the adventurer into the flaming core. The adventurer begged, saying he would die at this rate. But the guy replied that it was his fault for quitting the mission. And with that, he let the guy go. However, Haejin punched him in the face, calling him a bastard. The Black Dragon leader, looking beautiful and confused, wondered who this guy was. How could someone take down a B-rank adventurer with a single punch? Our boy saved the adventurer like a prince, even cradling him. In his arms, the adventurer thanked him for the rescue, but said it was risky to stay there. Haejin glanced to the side. He was between the boss and the entire Black Dragon Guild. Looking at the monster, Haejin knew he could just take the box and run, taking advantage of the distraction the others were causing the boss. But he couldn't do it. He told the guy not to worry, he just couldn't stand seeing someone die unjustly. The Black Dragon leader asked why everyone was standing still, while Haejin was certain it was all those damn people's fault. And now it turned into a mess. His suit still had 2 minutes and 17 seconds left, and he thought he had no choice but to go forward. The redhead was furious because she thought they were about to win. The bald guy asked if he should order the archers to attack, but she said no. She knew that before starting the battle, they needed enough wood. This is the key in defeating the 8 trigrams. In the middle of the transition from phase 1 to 2, the boss becomes immobile as he is now. At that moment, you just need to deliver some sacrifices to his chest and everything becomes easier. Then the bald guy said to take a look, and Haejin had just jumped, already higher than the boss. From above, something caught his attention. There seemed to be a crack in the head with a message to grab. He was sure that was the weak spot and went for a punch, which hit the big-headed guy dead on. The leader started trembling, wondering what that idiot was doing. At this rate, he would end up waking the boss. Because of this, she ordered everyone to stop him. She didn't care if he died or not, but wanted to somehow stop what he was doing. The people fired a bunch of arrows at the boss, and Haejin's suit had 1 minute and 31 seconds left. Punching the ogre's head, he asked for it to break soon. A window appeared saying danger had been detected, and his body seemed to dodge the arrows on its own. He was startled by this, wondering why those people were trying to kill him. The bald guy told the leader that the guy was strangely a dodge god. There were arrows even behind him that he was dodging without seeing, until one hit the ogre's eye. At that moment, the ogre trembled, and its eye glowed. The bald guy wondered if they would have to use everyone to stop that guy. Then he ordered the front line to charge. Haejin wondered when the boss would stop. It looked like the monster was wearing a wig of arrows, but then the ground beneath him began to tremble. The captain's fan fell to the ground as she knew they were now screwed. The creature's eye lit up, and now phase 2 was complete. Haejin started talking about how it was too hot up there, while the people below were trembling. The golem came to stomp on everyone, roaring. With one impact, the entire army was decimated. The bald guy asked the leader what they would do, but the master had no idea. She knew there was nothing more to be done there. Seeing the golem in front of her, she was sure everyone there would be turned to ashes. However, up above, Haejin hadn't stopped, delivering a series of punches to the monster's forehead. The master couldn't believe he was still alive up there. The problem was his suit only had 10 seconds left. He continued punching, and it went down to 8 seconds. At 5 seconds, he insisted, asking for it to break. 1 second remained. He delivered a punch, exploding the creature's head. When the smoke cleared, Do-yeon had just arrived and was in disbelief. Seeing the fallen boss, he wondered if the kid really had defeated it alone. In a way, Do-yeon felt a connection to Haejin because they seemed to have a similar fighting style. But he didn't imagine he would find that guy here. He ran toward Haejin, saying he needed to recruit him to the guild today. Down below, the Black Dragon guild members hadn't died, and Jo-han couldn't believe that loser had defeated the 8 trigrams alone. The bald guy asked for orders, and she said to capture him as soon as the smoke cleared. She was sure that even though he was strong enough to defeat it, he would be exhausted now. and she couldn't let someone who complicated the Black Dragon's plans get away. But an explosion happened in front of them. It was Do-yeon who greeted them. Immediately, the entire guild recognized him, and he said it seemed he was right to think they were behind all this, already understanding that their plan was to use the new recruits as sacrifices. Johan didn't expect him to show up there and ordered everyone to prepare for battle. She pointed in his direction and said he was now the target, and they better not let their guard down. Do-yeon was worried since there were many people there, and now he wasn't sure if he could win. What he wanted to know was where Haejun was. Then another guild member came to talk to her, saying they had a problem. She asked what it was. He sheepishly said that the guy with the helmet had disappeared. The poor woman in Do-yeon didn't know what had happened, and she screamed in desperation. Now he was screwed alone against everyone. He got involved in all this without meaning to. Haejun fled with the helmet since he thought he was going to die. He almost woke up in Olympus, and it wasn't because of a delivery. The poor guy wondered why he helped those people since he wasn't even a hunter. And he said he had to remember never to make such a mistake again. But then something caught his attention. In the distance, he saw the city in Seongju Mountain. He wondered if the dungeon was disappearing because he had just killed the boss. Dungeons form when gates aren't completed after a long time. And when that happens, anyone can enter and kill the boss. But it's extremely difficult. Usually only registered hunters from the association can do it. But this time, a guy registered as a delivery man was the one who resolved the dungeon. The poor guy was praying this wouldn't cause problems and wondering why he got involved in this. Then he remembered. Back with the monkey, he said it seemed the boy took longer than he thought. Haejun, crying, explained that the request was impossible. The monkey told him to stop stalling and explain what happened. Haejun cursed, explaining that he had said it was just a piece of junk. But when he got there, it was a giant ogre that shook the ground with every step. Not to mention it had a laser that almost burned him alive. Kong said that was impossible and asked if the 8 trigrams had gone crazy, noting that it was a peaceful creature that doesn't move until someone hits it. Then the protagonist realized that if it weren't for the Black Dragon, it would have been easy. Now he was motivated to wipe the floor with their heads. How could those bastards dare to interfere with his deliveries? The monkey then said he realized from what he said that he probably didn't get the box. But Haejun said he did. Wukong asked how he did it, and Haejun said he exploded the monster's head and brought the box to Wukong, asking what the deal was. The monkey chuckled and began to go crazy, saying he was incredible. Even though he had defeated that creature in the skies, the monster here on Earth could still destroy any human. He asked for the protagonist's name, who responded. The monkey then extended his hand, saying that today he met Haejun Lee. At that moment, something burst out of the box. An explosion happened, and something came flying out. When he opened his eyes, the monkey was holding the staff, saying he owed him one now. And if it weren't for the boy, he would have been trapped in that place for years. Haejun recognized it as the golden staff. Wukong whistled and a cloud appeared beneath him. He warned Haejun that he needed to escape before the Jade Emperor showed up. With that, he flew away, saying they would meet again someday. Haejun was desolate, saying he didn't mind the guy fleeing, but he wanted to get paid. But then a sack fell on his face. Wukong said he wasn't stingy, and the payment was already done. What was in that sack was just a bonus for his hard work. Haejun asked what it was, but the monkey was already gone. A golden glow was emanating from the sack. He opened it, wondering if it really was just a bonus. Sometime later at home, Haejun was watching the news. They were talking about various allegations against the Black Dragon Guild. He felt relieved to know those bastards were exposed for everything they did. The guy he saved gave a statement saying that no one went there knowing they'd have to face the boss. The reporter asked about the individual wearing a helmet who saved everyone. Smiling, he said the guy appeared just when he was about to be incinerated, and he single-handedly defeated the 8 trigrams. He was sure they wouldn't have made it out alive if it weren't for the boy. Haejun smiled, thinking that in the end, his effort wasn't wasted. He thought he had done something crazy when his body leaked forward out of nowhere, but everything turned out fine and his identity wasn't exposed. But the most important thing was that he got paid, and now he had 95,300 points. He earned 70,000 just from this delivery. But the greedy part of him felt he deserved even more because of that boss. But for him, it was fine. After all, if he exchanged it, it would be $700,000 for one delivery. He could buy a crazy apartment, and he also received a gift he never imagined he would get, a piece of hair from the great Wukong. If you place it in your palm and blow on it, you can summon a clone of the King Wukong himself. Haejun was excited looking at it because it would be of great help. Lately, he had been going through a lot. Unexpected creatures kept appearing. Even if it was just a clone, it was still the great Wukong. Look at this sick face he makes imitating a monkey. For him, it was basically an extra life. And at that moment, he received another delivery request. He put on his jacket, put on his helmet, and was ready for another one. Meanwhile, in a hospital, a guy was running down the corridor. It was the guild leader calling out for Do-yeon. The guy seemed to have been beaten up by the guild and was in bad shape. Do-yeon asked what the leader was doing there. He was supposed to be in Busan today. The leader said he had already taken care of it and couldn't stay away. After all, it was partly his fault that Do-yeon was in this state. The boy responded that it wasn't the leader's fault. He misjudged the situation and got involved when he shouldn't have. He should have been more cautious with those Black Dragon bastards. Sungjun was angry that those bastards had the nerve to attack someone from his guild. The right thing would have been to send Renov along with Duyan, but he promised that next time he would take those guys down himself. Then he asked Duyan if he was feeling okay. Duyan revealed that the doctors told him things didn't look good. Sungjun was shocked and asked if his days as a hunter were over, but the rascal was just joking and said the idiot was fooled. His arm just had a slight break, but soon he'd be 100%. He started laughing in the leader's face, asking if he believed he would retire just because of that. Sungjun grabbed his cheek, saying that today was a good day for the kid to retire, but he responded that he would follow the leader until the end of time. Sometime later, the leader asked if it was true that the boy defeated the 8 trigrams alone. Duyan said he saw with his own eyes the guy exploding the monster's head with a punch. For him, as a martial artist, seeing the guy win without any weapons was inspiring. Duyan then asked if the team sent to find the boy had already succeeded, but Sungjun said, unfortunately, no one found anything. They saw on some cameras that he entered an alley, but after that, he disappeared. In the sky, Haejun was sneezing, thinking it was too cold there. A while later, he was at Hephaestus' house, where it was too hot. He opened the door, greeting his friend, who didn't seem to notice, so focused was he. He sat down, thinking that for now, the best choice was to wait for the guy to finish the job. But now, in a warm room, he was getting a little sleepy. The heat of that place reminded him of something. It was as if he were back in his mother's arms. But Hephaestus woke him up, asking how the kid got there, giving him a big hug. He was startled and asked when that damn dwarf appeared. Hephaestus said it seemed the boy was very tired today, but the delivery he needed was quite far. Could the boy handle it? Haejun thought about it. After all, the rascal knew the farther he went, the more he got paid. And he said he was willing to walk halfway around the planet as long as they paid the right amount. Hephaestus smiled, saying it was always good to count on the boy. And he pulled out a staff, saying this was what he wanted to be delivered. Something he had built with the materials Haejun had brought, but the delivery date was for today. Hearing this, Haejun said he would have to start running right away. He observed the design and asked where the guy wanted him to take it. Hephaestus revealed it was to a pyramid. Haejun was shocked and said it would be easier to send it by plane. And besides, pyramids aren't part of Greek mythology. Winking, Hephaestus said he had clients outside Olympus. Haejun was annoyed but ran off, saying he would sort it out in a few hours. Suddenly, Hephaestus told him to wait because he forgot to mention something. The client he was delivering to was quite peculiar, so he had arranged for an assistant for Haejun. The boy was confused, wondering why he would need an assistant for a delivery. Suddenly, someone greeted him, saying they came under Cupid's orders, and introduced themselves as Lucio. Despite the name, Lucio was a woman, he thought. Our boy decided not to worry about that and sped up on his scooter. And the best part was discovering it wouldn't take long since Egypt was actually in the skies. And there, at least there was no traffic. But suddenly, Lucio screamed, saying she had been tricked. She thought she had come here to help Hephaestus, not to ride on the back of some random human. She kept kicking Haejun in the head with her feet, and he was getting annoyed, thinking this mission wasn't going to be as easy as he thought. He said that for a small fairy, she was really annoying. She replied that she was actually quite large for a nymph. An hour ago, when she introduced herself, she said it was an honor to serve Hephaestus. Haejun didn't seem to want to take her, but Hephaestus knew the boy would need her. Our protagonist turned to the dwarf and asked if he really couldn't go alone. Lucio got angry, telling him to respect her, while Hephaestus explained that it wasn't that he didn't trust Haejun. It's just that he didn't know much about where they were going, whereas Lucio knew everything very well. That's why it would be great to have her around, since she would only help and not hinder even a bit. But back on the scooter, she was just picking her nose and saying she didn't want to help this kid. Wondering why she had to stay on a human scooter, she kept kicking his head, asking how much longer it would take to get there. Our boy ignored her, and she kept shouting, telling him to answer already. He then told her that if she stayed quiet, he would tell Hephaestus that she was perfect and didn't cause any trouble at all. But for Lucio, not being able to help would be a stain on her reputation. After all, she had studied her whole life, and her existence as a fairy was considered almost divine. She didn't want to accept that and was complaining to him, when suddenly a sweet fell into her mouth. She was startled and asked what he did. Haejun said she wouldn't shut up, so he gave her a sweet to keep her quiet. And if she stayed silent for the rest of the trip, he would give her more. For Lucio, who had never eaten a sweet, it tasted like divine angel food. She then told him he better not be lying, to which he said he always kept his word. Haejun thought the easiest way to handle a child was to give them candy, and now with her quiet, they only had 800 meters left to reach their destination. He enjoyed a few seconds of peace until he saw two eyes in the middle of a mist. He slowed down, but now they were both in the middle of a thick fog. Angry, he asked Lucio why she didn't warn him about this danger. She said it was his fault for giving her candy to keep her quiet. With that, he stopped the scooter and pulled her off, who was struggling, telling him to look. Behind them was a giant sphinx. It informed them that to pass, they had to solve a riddle. Lucio explained that this sphinx was dangerous because it devoured those who answered the riddle incorrectly. The sphinx was a creature related to Siphon, who nearly destroyed all of Olympus. Of course, it wasn't as strong as a legendary creature, but Haejun wasn't that strong either. Seeing the size of the creature, he knew his blows would be useless. Then suddenly, the phone rang and the rascal just hoped he would be well paid for this. He then walked towards it. Lucio asked what he was doing and Heijin said he was doing the obvious. He was going to solve the riddle. She tried to stop him, saying it was madness since he would die if he got it wrong. But Heijin was confident about what the Sphinx's question would be since the riddle was common. And in the worst case, he could use Wukong's hair strand. The Sphinx turned to him and asked if he was ready. Heijin told it to go ahead because he was short on time and was there to make a delivery. Meanwhile, Lucio was crying, saying the damned guy had actually accepted. The Sphinx smiled and told them to prepare. Heijin thought the riddle would be, what walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 3 in the evening? But this old one is very buff, saying he doesn't even need a cane. Obviously, Heijin was confident since he had seen this multiple times. But then the Sphinx asked what the name of the sound a duck makes when it falls was. Now he had a completely idiotic look on his face while the Sphinx stared at him. He asked what kind of duck nonsense this was. Lucio started thinking and was sure a duck makes a quack. But then she started crying, saying she had no idea what the word was for the sound they make when they get hurt. Being observed in a sphere, the last thing she wanted was to be eaten alive. The orb was watched by a woman in Egyptian clothes, who said those two seemed like very intriguing visitors. The Sphinx stared at them again, ordering them to answer the name of the sound that duck makes when it falls. Heijin had no idea. What kind of data joke was this? Then he remembered he was up against a Sphinx. Maybe there was some kind of wordplay involved. Gleaming, the Sphinx said he had 3 minutes to answer. Meanwhile, Lucio, desperate, was crying, saying it was impossible to solve. Even she, an elite of knowledge, had no idea. And she was starting to get mad at Heijin because she was going to be eaten because of him. Remembering a time she spoke with her teacher and asked if Sphinx riddles were hard. He replied that she should know that before the first person answered the riddles, 100 people had been devoured. Lucio asked if that meant it was impossible to solve, and he answered that not even Jim got it right, and warned that if she ever encountered a Sphinx, she should run for her life. Now she was crying desperately, saying she knew things would go wrong. Until Heijin turned around and said the name of the sound a duck makes when it falls is quack-sided, the mix of quack and accident. Obviously, Lucio froze and asked what the hell that was, what he was thinking, why he wasted their only chance with such an idiotic thing. But the Sphinx smiled and said he was correct. Angrily, she asked how that dumb answer was correct. While Heijin thought it was obvious it was a joke, it's always like this. The Sphinx praised him for answering the riddle and said he earned the right to Pa. Before she could finish, he told her to shut up, saying he solved this crap so she should get out of the way. The Sphinx stood there, not understanding why this guy was so aggressive, and he then told her to come up with a better riddle because that one was garbage. The poor Sphinx stood there crying. He turned around and asked if she was really crying. She said no, it was just that a bit of sand got in her eye. Lucio was still in disbelief that he got it right, when Heijin told her to hold on because he was going to speed up. But a while later, they seemed to have entered the passage, and Lucio called out to him a little insecurely. He asked what it was, and she said she wanted to apologize for what she said earlier. She said she was there to help him, but in the end, she only belittled him for being human. She didn't deserve to call herself a mega elite. Heijin responded that she didn't need to be so hard on herself. Compared to the cruel words he heard in the past, this was nothing. To him, it was like the annoying chatter of a younger cousin, so he didn't mind. Lucio seemed a bit shy at that and thanked Heijin. A while later, they were in front of the pyramid. Impressed by its size, not even Lucio could see the top of it. Heijin looked around. According to the map, they were in the right place. Then she pointed out something written nearby. They approached a box with Egyptian inscriptions, and she explained it said to ring the doorbell. He was impressed that she could read hieroglyphs, and she said she was an elite after all. So he pressed the button, and everything started to shake. They both wondered what was happening, and she said it was gravitational magic. This confused them since they were just told to ring the doorbell. Suddenly, the ground opened up, and they started falling into a hole. A while later, he was lying on the ground, incredulous that he survived a fall from such a height. But he had crushed Lucio, who was almost losing her soul. He asked if she was dead, to which she angrily replied that, unfortunately, she wasn't. In the next scene, they were walking through the pyramid's corridors. Heijin thought this was more like exploring a dungeon than making the delivery. Then something caught Lucio's attention, and she told him to stop. He asked if there was a trap. She told him to point that shiny object at the wall so she could read what was there. Seeing the hieroglyphs, he asked what it said. And why did the painting depict an interaction between humans and a giant? Lucio seemed scared, and he asked if she had discovered something. She replied that she had heard of an evil goddess who liked to torment nymphs. She was sure these illustrations were from her ancestors to warn about the cruel attacks that happened there. But to Heijin, the drawings didn't seem violent. It looked more like some kind of festival in a field. But now she was motivated, saying she would seek vengeance for her ancestors because this was an unexpected chance. Heijin told her to keep quiet since the person there was their client. Then a mysterious leg appeared, asking what this talk of vengeance was about. They turned around as she asked why they had invaded a woman's home. Gleaming and all Cleopatra-like, she said the two were very rude. While shining brighter than 1,000 lights, she asked who among them was seeking vengeance. Heijin couldn't see anything, obviously, But Lucio, determined, flew towards her, saying she was avenging her ancestors. The protagonist told her to calm down and asked what she was thinking. Meanwhile, the Egyptian woman smiled, asking if she was a nymph, saying it had been a long time since she had seen one, and then gave her a hug, saying she was a very cute girl. While being embraced, she told the enemy to let go of her. Heijin stood there, not understanding what the heck was going on. A while later, the woman explained that a long time ago, there were festivals for the nymphs there, and the younger ones were always so cute. It was just a pity they were no longer with her. Heijin said he understood how they all died. It seemed she had hugged them all to death, and Lucio was suffering there. The woman let her go, saying she couldn't help it when she saw something so adorable, while Lucio cried, saying she almost died. She asked Heijin why he didn't help her, and he told her to relax. They started arguing, with her saying he had said it was like having a cousin. So how could anyone let family die? The woman interrupted them, saying she would introduce herself. She was the one who ruled the two brightest lands. She was the divine reincarnation of the all-powerful Horus, a pharaoh. But the two didn't care about what she was saying and kept arguing. While they fought, Heijin asked what this pharaoh business was about. Wasn't it usually the king of Egypt? Lucio replied that he didn't understand anything, and there were two types of gods. Those who were like Cupid or Hephaestus, born as deities, and those who achieved divine status like the old lady in front of them. The pharaoh asked why she was being called old, and Heijin said he wanted to talk to her because he came to deliver something. She said she knew very well since she had been watching his entire journey. At that moment, the package began to move and flew into her hand. Observing the item, she said it was of high quality. It was truly made by a good craftsman, and the design was perfect. She then said that the delivery man Heijin truly lived up to his reputation. Now the poor guy was confused, wondering since when he had a reputation. But with the delivery done, he thanked her, saying if she wanted to give a bonus, she could just send it to his account. Lucio said it was shameful to work with someone so greedy, and asked if he had no personal respect. Heijin responded that respect doesn't put food on the table. It was with that money she didn't want that he bought the candy she liked. She got excited and said to make sure a good deposit was made to the account. The pharaoh said their friendship was amazing and assured them not to worry about payment. In the end, she was a generous goddess. He then received 50,000 for the delivery and another 50,000 as a bonus. Currently, he had 195,000 points. The rascal now had a total of $19 million. Lucio said she helped, so he better give her some candy. He told her not to worry, she would get a whole store. She got excited, saying she would take 90% of the profit, leaving him a bit embarrassed. The woman advised them not to use that tunnel next time and to use the main entrance. Although she had good memories of that place, it didn't make sense to receive deliveries in the basement. Lucio mentioned the inscription said to ring the doorbell if there were no guards. The pharaoh explained there hadn't been guards there for years and they should have just knocked on the front door. In other words, they should have ignored the entry button and taken the stairs. But with that, the delivery was complete and he was back at Hephaestus' house. Exhausted, but at least he made it back in one piece. He told Lucio to wake up as she was drooling on his hand. "What's this, my child?" She woke up, asking if they were back already, and he said yes. That's when she realized they were already in front of Hephaestus' house. She then called over the radio and thanked him for the day, saying it was fun. He asked why she changed all of a sudden. Then he remembered that now the delivery was complete. It was time to say goodbye. Gleaming, he said it was great having her around even though she talked too much. She told him to shut up and stop ruining the perfect moment, and he said he was just telling the truth. Entering the shop, however, both said to each other that they never wanted to work together again. But Heijin didn't expect them to get along so well. At that moment, Hephaestus appeared, saying the client had praised them a lot, so he was thinking if they could work together from now on. The two stared at each other, considering the idea. And then they bumped heads, saying they would only do it if everyone liked the video to help Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.